Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's InduSoft Web Studio template application. We're going to have our very special guest, Mr. Matthew Knight from EMR Associates, cover his Argos template application. Before we get started on that, I want to talk of a few different things. I'm going to talk about custom applications versus template versus kind of what Matthew's going to show you, a template configuration kind of on-site or as needed. And then I'm going to talk about a couple of tools that are somewhat related to this, just to make you aware that we have our Business Intelligence Dashboard, our add-on. Boy, is that hard to say. And then I'm going to hand things over to Matthew and let him present majority of this. But before I get going, I would like to remind you, if you didn't know this, we are in the finals for Control Engineering Engineer's Choice Awards for 2018. There is a link here. If you're a Control Engineering subscriber, you can click on this link. That'll be posted when we post the video here in just a few days, the recording of this, as well as if you're a subscriber, you can just go on their website and search for the Engineer's Choice Awards. If you're not a subscriber, this is kind of neat. You can subscribe and then go immediately vote. So please do that if you're interested. If you really like InduSoft, we'd really appreciate that. So there's kind of my sales plug for the day. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, before we get into this, some logistics. If you have questions, Matthew and I cannot hear you, so please put those into the chat panel or the Q&A panel. And we'll get to those either during the presentation or at the end within the Q&A section. We will be recording the webinar and get that up on the website. Usually takes 2 or 3 days to get that up there. And we're going to be sending out a follow-up survey. Let us know how we did. We'd really appreciate that. Okay, now back to the presentation. Template versus custom. So if we look at some of the templates that are actually included in the PC demo that's available when you install InduSoft, there's a PackML template, kind of a screen, and this is for packaging type applications. If you're into packaging, you probably know what this is. So we already have that template, and really this is kind of a screen that's already done, and you can steal this screen, incorporate this in your application, and feel free to modify it, take it, use it, whatever. Another one that's maybe a little bit more popular, and Matthew will talk a little bit about the Oee tools that are either in his presentation or in his Argos application or coming. But OEE, if you didn't know it, it stands for Overall Equipment Effectiveness, and it's really popular in manufacturing environments, so it doesn't have to be used in a manufacturing environment. You can think of it this way: if your machine or your process should be running, let's say, for 8 hours a day, and it's only running for 6 hours, well, what is it doing in that 2 hours? What are the reasons why it stopped? And if you can figure out those reasons, you can make your machine or your process, run more than it has been without adding additional equipment. That we have available. The add-on template that's in the PC demo essentially is using the data from the OEE template and displaying that in large numbers. This could be driven out on a big screen TV, either 50, 65, or 80 inch, or even a 4K TV up in the rafters and show production maybe up and down the line if you need to. Dashboards over on the wall of an assembly area, production area. So lots of good tools that we have. Now, if I look at this as kind of a template, and this is kind of that middle section here of this solution in layers. If you were to take a look at InduSoft Web Studio, and what most people do with the product is develop custom applications for each instance that they're using, and maybe they get good at it and they find some things that they can copy and paste and reuse, or maybe symbols. But we've got this idea of these templates where people are really creating predefined screens or easy to create screens. And now what we're talking about is this higher level of really taking a project, and as you'll see Matthew demo here in a few minutes, and making it easy to deploy where everything is customizable, everything is kind of fill in the blank configuration, basically creating an application that you can then configure, and it really reduces development time, deployment time, and you're going to see some of that from Matthew's demonstration. But this is utilizing the standard InduSoft product features that really open it up to that, whether it's symbols, whether it's the screen mnemonics code, the tags database creation, whatever the case is, we've got features built into the standard product that allow these guys to create this. So if you didn't know, we also have a BI dashboard, business intelligence dashboard add-on. This is not a free thing. This is something that you go to the website and understand a little bit more. But basically the idea is if you have data that you've collected either from InduSoft or from some other source, you can basically open this project up in just minutes, literally choose your database, your table, where is that data, then you choose how you want the screen laid out. Is it, in this case, it's two on the left and one big chart on the right, or is it one over the top of the other, or is it, is a pie chart, a table, a Pareto line, a table? It can even print as PDFs. But basically, you choose your data source, you choose what graph type is going to be there and what color it's going to be, and kind of literally click go, and it gets the data and shows it to you, even if that data is has not come from the InduSoft application. So there's a nice brochure up on our website about it, a little bit more information. If you're interested, let us know. And we also have an and-on template application. It's a little bit more than an and-on. Basically, this is alerting people to production delays and basically improving manufacturing environments. And the really neat thing about this, you can see that we've got a webinar that we did on this, and you can configure, like, how is your plant laid out? Essentially, you can say, okay, we've got manufacturing and packaging and shipping. And then inside of manufacturing, we've got these 3 zones, and each zone has 7 machines. And then in this packaging area, we've got this type, that type, and the other type. You build that tree structure. You add users. You add fault codes. You add reasons. And then it tracks and kind of does everything else for you. It's really a neat application. So, again, there's a webinar up on the website for that. We've got a brochure specifically for that template. And, again, this is not something that's included within InduSoft. This is an add-on, but it's really kind of neat, and it's kind of the beginnings of what we were looking at when we were working with EMR on their Argos application. So with that, Matthew, I'm going to take you off of mute here.
Nope, sounds good. Thank you, Scott. Greatly appreciated, and appreciate the fact that we get to partner with InduSoft and do webinars like this. It's a lot of fun and a good way for your partners to get out the technology that they put together. So a little background on myself. My background, electrical engineering, a lot of SCADA work, a lot of plant process work, water, wastewater systems. EMR is a manufacturer's rep. We represent InduSoft and a few other lines you should recognize there. We've been around since 1979. And it's really our experience as a sales rep, but also mine in the SCADA market, that kind of led to this system. So a little background, where we're coming from, right? Everybody knows on the phone call what SCADA is. And when we're out selling SCADA, what we find is we got a pretty long sales process. A lot of conversation back and forth with your customer, mock-ups, a lot of what-ifs. As Scott mentioned, you might even use the PC demo from InduSoft to let the customer know what he might be able to get and how an idea of his system. And then once you have something developed and you got a concept, you come back and your engineers go through and they put a lot of time and effort into building databases, building alarms, building trends, building graphics. And while there's some synergy from other projects, so you can cut and paste in some ways, it's still a lot of work. And then in the end, we install it, right? And then a lot of times the customer gets in front of it and he pulls up a screen and who knows what it's going to look like. It's custom for him. If your engineer leaves or the engineer at his facility that developed it leaves, usually there's not anybody that knows how to truly work on it or fix it. So what we've kind of coined now is for SCADA, in a lot of cases, it's super customized and it's difficult to add to the system. You've got to have the original person that wrote it to really get good use and good additions into that system. So over the years, we've called on a lot of end customers, a lot of system integrators, and really came back with a few key things that they want, right, that they want to get out of a SCADA or a software and HMI package. So one of those is visualization. So they want to see what's going on. They want level indicators. They want a dashboard type display of their process, of their facility. They want to get an alarm. So if something goes wrong at a threshold, at a set point, it turns off, it faults, we want to get an alarm for that. We want to actually know and get an email that we need to go check something out. Trending, you got to have history so you can do some cause and effect, and then logging. They want to get this to a central database somewhere so they can use other systems in it and get really good usage out of this data that we're bringing in. And then make it easy to get additions, right? They don't want to pay for somebody to come in every time they need to make a change or add a alarm or add a trend or add a new tag from one of their processes. So really, what does that look like when we start thinking about it? Well, as Scott mentioned, it's really a template-based solution. We give them a standardized layout. It's configurable, no programming, and then there's some assets in there that allow the end customer, with some technical ability, to add systems into his own server. And then the last thing is custom assets. And we'll explain that a little bit, but that's really for our InduSoft certified integrators, for our InduSoft distributors, to let them use the software and get really useful content out of it. So you see what we want, and why did we choose InduSoft to do this? So we really looked at this and said it's got to be a runtime environment. We really don't want the plant personnel to have to go in and edit a database or create an alarm or do anything where they have to shut the system down or add something to the system that could cause issues to a running system. So that needed some of InduSoft's key features, which are we can add tags at runtime. We can add communication drivers at runtime. The database connectivity of InduSoft allows us to now put all this data into a SQL database on the fly. And really the cost-effective runtime licenses for InduSoft, and now with the new direction they've gone with the thin client licensing, it's very easy for us to go out and talk to a customer about how many display clients they want, what the system needs to look like, and quote them that day. And it also helped that we have a really good relationship with Scott and Fabio, the engineering and management over there at InduSoft, and we're able to work with them to create this product. So we put together a functional spec, and we worked with the InduSoft Engineering Services group starting back in really January of this year. We kicked off the project. It was probably about a year, 2-year cycle that we were discussing this, going back and forth with ideas of how to create it. But in the end, InduSoft wrote it for us. We did a project with the consulting services, and the system runs in runtime only. You don't have to even have a development license. It logs to the SQL database. We're creating the trends and the alarms and the dashboard. We'll show you all of that as we go through the demonstration. And the hope is it allows us now, as an integrator or as a distributor, to sell something that cuts all of that time and effort out of SCADA and lets us focus on what's really the hardest part, which is what data needs to come out of these machines and what network connections and what do we do with it once it's in the database. So the 4 key regions or 4 key processes that Argos accomplishes is visualize, alarm, trend, and database for a system. We've got it set up as widgets. So this is not an InduSoft widget. This is just what we're calling small icon displays that will be on the dashboard, and I'll show you how that works. But the 4 default, which are the simplest parts of any SCADA system, are a digital input showing feedback of on-off, a digital output to control on-off, analog inputs, and analog outputs. So these 4 base widgets allow a lot of systems to be built quickly and efficiently. On those widgets, once we add them to the system, we build out an online screen on that dashboard. And this lets the customer get a quick overview of the widgets inside of his system. The widget leads to a faceplate. So the faceplate in our system is really the more detailed view of that asset. So as you can see here, this is a power monitor. So this is a widget that we've created to talk to Eaton, Socomec, and Square D Schneider power meters. Once we know the make and the model, they all look the same. We talk Modbus TCP to that meter. You get the widget as you see, and you get the faceplate, which gives you a little more detail of that process. We have the ability to create dashboards. So some of the first customers we discussed, they wanted to be able to section their plant. So different process areas, electrical rooms, the HVAC portion of their facility. This allows them to do that and then assign the widget to that dashboard area. We've got an online grid screen we'll show you. This gives you a quick tabular view of all of your assets, everything in the system running, and then a detailed view of all the parameters that you're talking to from that asset. So every tag inside of that asset that you're talking to shows up in that detailed view. Alarming, we have 3 categories of alarms. You can name them really whatever you want. We got them set up as default, warning, maintenance, and critical. And then you can enter email addresses and also phone numbers to get text messages and emails depending on which category of alarm is triggered. Through the setup process, you will also go in and set up your SMTP or your POP server email, which will allow you to get those emails and text messages for alarms. Inside of each asset, on the alarming side, we're able to go in and select high and low alarms. We give limits, custom names for those alarms, and then we can assign them which category they belong to. So what this does now is at runtime, you can turn on, turn off alarms, configure alarms. If you don't want it to alarm tomorrow, you go and you unclick it so it's not enabled anymore. So it allows the operator to have very good control of his system. This is a printout of what you would see on your smartphone as a text message and on your email for the alarming. The alarms are going to give you time and date stamp, the asset type, the name of the asset, and then which parameter triggered the alarm. The trending system, each time you add an asset, you're able to go in and sort by asset name and then the parameters inside of that asset. We can put up to 15 pins on one trend, and we have the ability to save trend profiles. So I could have a trend for my HVAC power usage. I could have a trend for my OEE production levels, all those type of things inside of the system. And then from that same trend window, you can export that data. We basically take a database dump from the SQL and send it out to Excel in a CSV format. So if you wanted to use it in other systems, you could. Our database link is set up through runtime. So we give it a server name. That could be a local SQL Express server, as you see here, with a database name, or it could be something hosted in the cloud. It really doesn't matter. As long as it's a SQL, Microsoft SQL database, we need the server name, what do you want to call the database, and then how you want to do your security for the login. Custom assets. We mentioned these, but what the custom assets allow the InduSoft channel or integrators to do is create widgets and faceplates for items that their customer might have. So These here show some remote I/O, the power meters, chillers, air handlers, water meters, a soft starter or a VFD. And it allows you to create your own asset and then use it. The customer now can use it as many times as he wants. So every time he installs a new power meter, all he really needs to know now is the IP address and the unique name for that power meter to add it to his Argos software. So a simple application at a brewery. Really, we're pulling in multiple systems. So this could be from remote I/O. This could be from PLCs. It could be from power monitors. But we're able to build up our online screen from those different assets coming from across the facility. We're going to go into a live system here, but this is another typical application. So across this system, we're going to talk to some BACnet, HVAC. We're going to get some machine protocol over Modbus, doing some counts and some OEE, a remote I/O, protection relays, and then some hotspot monitoring and power monitoring. So we're going to go through, this is a little network sample of what that layout might look like in your facility. And we're going to do that today live with the Argos software to give you an idea of what it's going to take to build this system. Here's my contact info. This will be displayed after we get done also. Any questions, any comments, please feel free to send me an email. So I'm going to start up a Modbus simulator on my laptop. And all it's doing is cycling through all the Modbus registers and doing counts and count-ups. This is InduSoft. So one of the nice things about the Argos software is it's built with all of the default attributes that InduSoft has. So there isn't anything custom, any secondary software we had to add, or any fancy things other than script that we did to create this system. So when I go into runtime here, this is your general layout of the Argos. It is licensed, just like InduSoft, per machine. We've got our online grid display. And what I've got is that system we just showed. The ones in green I've already added to kind of get ahead of the game. But what your first steps would be inside of the software would be to come into the setup screen, configure your SQL server, right? My integrated security, my database name, and what server I'm talking to. Configure my alarm types. And my categories here would allow me now to put in an email address or a text number to get the alarms. This is the dashboard setup. So right now we have 4 dashboards. And to create a dashboard, we would come here and we could say production C. So we create a dashboard, and now it's available in our drop-downs. And I'll show you where that ties into the system here shortly. Also under setup would be our remote notification. So in this settings, we go in and either SMTP or POP server. We put all of our email data in, and then we've got the ability to test the email. So we can send a test email from the system to make sure the alarming is going to work properly and that you've configured this correctly. Our assets. So this is where each asset the customer can use is housed. So these are all of the assets, the default assets, analog in, analog out, digital in, digital out, and then some of the ones that we've added and we've put into the system that customers have asked for. So you can see we've got a VFD, the OEE power templates, gen sets for generators. So really, if you think about any of these systems, all of them have base tags that we want to read out. So once we've established that, it's very easy now to recreate those. So under our asset configuration, you saw we had these 3 assets already in the system. Now we're going to go in and we're going to say, hey, they want to get a temperature monitoring. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to add a new asset, give it a unique name, I select my asset type. So for this, it's a Grace engineered hotspot monitor. This device allows you to monitor real-time temperature in switchgear in MCCs. So we've mapped all the Modbus registers, which I'll show you in a second, for this, and we're going to send it to our switchgear dashboard. And from the setup, I could also tell it how often do I want to log to my SQL database. We got from 1 second to 1 minute logging time. So once I do that, I recreate my application. And now on this screen, you'll see now I have my hotspot monitor in here. And when I go back to my main online screen, these are all the assets in the system. If I go to my dashboards and go to my switchgear, now I can see that hotspot monitor we just added. So the numbers are a little flaky because we're doing a simulation over Modbus. And if I look in the background here, so behind our hotspot monitor, these are all the tags that are associated with that asset. So we build this inside of an Excel template and import that into the Argos software. So here's all the Modbus addresses that we need to know inside that device. And if we wanted to, we could go in here, we could change our units, our mins, our maxes, our div and our add in case we want to do scaling before the thing even comes in over the communication. We can scale it as it comes into the system. And then we can enable our low and our high alarms. So the next asset we want to pull in is a power meter. So we know we want it to go to the switchgear. So I come here, give it a unique name. Select my asset. So it's a power asset, power meter. And I'm putting in the IP address of my PC, which is running the Modbus server now. Obviously, in the real world, this would be the IP address of your asset. And we do have some pop-ups to kind of help with that, right? We're using enter asset name, select the COM driver, select the asset type. So there are some things that go here to help you out. We're going to put it on the switchgear, recreate our application. So now in the background, InduSoft is writing the tags. They're creating the SQL tables. It's creating the trends and the alarms, and obviously it's creating the widget for that power meter inside of our switchgear dashboard. So this is the new one we just added. It wasn't there a second ago. And then if I go to the faceplate, I can actually see more details of that power meter. And then the last one we'll add an Allen Bradley just to show the difference in drivers. So if we went here and we had some counts that we wanted to monitor and just check, and we wanted it to be an analog input. Right now I'm sitting on Modbus TCP, but maybe I've got an Allen Bradley compact logics in the field or control logics. So I'm going to select the driver. These are all the drivers we have to choose from InduSoft. So every driver in the InduSoft system's inside of here. So I create that. Once again, I'll give it an IP address. Now this one's going to be dead because there's nothing out there. And then maybe I want to put it on production C. So once that's in the system, there's my analog input. You can see the driver is ABCIP. In the background here, I need to change my address. So it would be a double int, and maybe we've got the tag name called counts inside of our compact or control logics. And the addressing is exactly the same as you would use inside of InduSoft. So in your driver worksheet, you're going to enter the same thing here that you would enter into the driver worksheet. So once I have that done, I've got an ABCIP, and if I go here and I look at my production B, or was it production C? Production C, you can see here my counts. Obviously, it's not communicating because there's no AB out there on this system. And if I go to my alarms, you'll see that we've got a communication loss to that device. So we're tracking communication losses, and we're tracking high and low limits. And then we have the ability for history, so we can go back and look. You can see we've been doing a lot of testing on this system and a lot of alarms. So we're able to go back into the history of the SQL server and pull our alarming history. The trend windows, we come here, and here's all the assets in the system. So we got a table of all the assets and everything that's tied to them on their parameters. Or we can come here and just select maybe the counts that we just added. And if we had something there, we would apply it. And now we're trending the counts. Let's see if we can find one that's live. So if we do temperature, close that, and then scale it, you can see now from the SQL database, we're pulling in the trend for that asset we just added. So this is how the customer would build his system. He would come in, lay out what he wants, how he wants it, and from there, now he can create really whatever he needs to start monitoring, alarming, trending in the system. For the InduSoft certified guys and the distributors out there, we have a custom asset. And what this means is we've got an asset in the system that allows you to easily and quickly create. I'm going to put this one under production. Your own widgets. So if I look at this custom now that I just added to the system, I put it under production. So it simply has a bunch of binary inputs, analog inputs, and then in the background, it has I think we've got 10 commands, 20 indications, 20 analogs, and 10 analog outputs. So this now allows you to quickly and efficiently create a custom asset. So if I go to InduSoft now, I'm in my development environment, and I look at that screen, custom. Well, you see I had this from the webinar earlier today. I'm going to move it back over here. Save this. And now if I go back to my runtime, you'll see that object move. So this kind of shows you we're still working in all the bounds of InduSoft. So there's nothing magic about Argos other than we've really limited the development time you'll have to go through. So we got a toggle button here, right, on, off. We're giving you drop downs to control analogs, so it's going to write to the analog values here. We've got analog input, so you can type in an input to this. And some of our integrators now, specifically on some HVAC, have used that custom asset to build some pretty nice widgets. So if we look at our RTU with economizer, so we just had a customer ask, shove this under HVAC, for us to come in and over BACnet. I don't have a BACnet slave here, so I'm going to leave it as Modbus. But over BACnet, he wants to monitor his rooftop unit that has a existing type of controller. So we're given the zone, temperatures, and then the set points. We're doing some trending here. And then on the faceplate, we're able to have control, change set points, and then do all the monitoring of that system over BACnet. And this particular guy has about 10 rooftop units, and they've got a BACnet IP to BACnet MSTP or something along those lines. It's a serial version of BACnet. So we're hitting that router, that gateway, and pulling all this information for him into the same system that he could be monitoring his production and that he could be monitoring his electrical switchgear. and it was all created from that custom asset. So they added the screen, and then they took the analog inputs that we have here, and we give you an idea of how to create that. We've got a write-up on controlboss.com that shows how to do this. And then the last widget, the newest one we're coming out with, is OEE. So the OEE here is being developed by InduSoft for us at the moment. We've got an active project with them. And we're going to add our OEE. And if this was a live system, we would have told it what PLC, and then we would need to go in, and under that OEE, we need to go in and tell it where these tag names are, right? So we want to know good units, bad units, is it running? And then a part type. So we would come in here, and we would tell it at this machine, it's good units or this register. And then once that's done, on our online screen, we would have an OEE giving us availability, performance, and quality. And the background here is, it's just a screen print of what we're hoping to achieve and get to with the product. That should be out by the end of November, early December. This is just a remote I/O asset. So we've had customers that don't have a smart device in the field. So they might have a generator or a compressor or something in their facility that doesn't have communication capabilities. So this is a Wago brick of remote I/O, and all we're doing is giving them a few analog outputs for control and a few digitals for on-off and then feedback indication. But once that's in the system now, he could add as many remote I/O bricks as he wants. All he would do is give them unique IP addresses and come here into the asset configuration and add them. So this here is the Wago remote I/O, and then here's the registers that we're talking to inside of that. So it's already mapped, it's already set up for him to start monitoring and controlling. So once again, custom assets, easily created, but still we're all InduSoft, so going in and looking at tag names and registers, this is really using the InduSoft tools to make a configurable, template-based SCADA system. So Scott, that's kind of the end of mine. I went through a little faster this time. Here's my contact info. Any questions out there?
Well, Matthew, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I got you.
All right. First of all, thank you. I'm going to have Matthew leave his contact information up while we open it up for questions. As a reminder, we can't hear you on this type of webinar, so if you have questions, please type those into either the chat panel or the Q&A panel, and we'll get those answered. But while we're waiting for other questions to come in, you know, Matthew, on this morning's webinar, I asked you a couple of questions. I'm going to try to squeak those in on this one. Before I do, though, I want to talk to you about a concept and just basically say, where the heck were you all my life? I wish I had this application throughout my entire career. In fact, earlier this year, I did a project, and I want to talk about kind of a concept that I'm seeing become more and more prevalent. And in fact, I'm starting to write an article that I'm going to try to get published probably early next year. And the idea is shadow I/O. And the concept is, you know, I did a project earlier this year that was dashboarding a company's machines. And what happened is they are a company that buys machines, implements them, and their product is the output of these machines. they don't ever want to touch the ladder logic and the PLCs on those machines. They don't ever want to get into that control, but they want to monitor them remotely using InduSoft. So what they did is they put a little enclosure, a little 8-inch by 8-inch enclosure, and put a handful of I/O with Modbus TCP and put a handful of, literally 5 sensors on each machine, and we were able to tie that back into InduSoft to give them some really nice dashboards. And I think this would be a great opportunity for somebody that wants to do that. Do you see that as an opportunity for this?
Big time, because what we're finding on the OEE is a lot of plants and factories, and we're talking guys with maybe 15, 20 machines, right? Not the large guys, but places where they've got machines that have come in from multiple plants that have closed, or they've bought machines on the used market. And like you mentioned, they have no idea what the PLC program is. They're kind of running on a wing and a prayer, right? They really don't even know what the IP address of some of them are. So when we start talking OEE, we have to put something on there to give them good parts, bad parts, is it running, even maybe an interface, right? We're looking at IoT View right now as a interface for these customers to snap it on the side of the machine, push the data back up to Argos, and now they don't have to touch anything. And as you mentioned, what's nice is it's always the same no matter what machine you go to. The I/O works. The maintenance guys know how to troubleshoot that. So they're not having to have, okay, I got to get in and troubleshoot. No, if it's talking to our system, this is the I/O and this is how it works. So I am. That is a very good point, that we have a lot of customers that really their network is all over the place. Maybe all the machines have the same IP address. We've seen that in multiple facilities where the OEM just keeps sending them machines with, there's 10 IP addresses on that machine, and the same machine sitting next to it has the exact same 10. So they don't have the ability to go in and change that, so they're looking for that add-on piece to get the data back up to a centralized system like Argos.
Yeah. Are you hearing a name for that? I'm hearing that as either shadow I/O or parallel I/O. Are you hearing a name?
I haven't heard a name yet, Scott, but you need to coin something that sounds better than those, right?
Agreed. So again, we have it open up for questions. If you have any, put those into the chat panel or the Q&A panel. Matthew, I'm going to throw out a couple. What do you see as kind of the minimum and maximum size tags for this to be used? What's the kind of starting point and high-end ending point?
Yeah, so what we're looking at is, because the system's based on InduSoft, when we use a tag, it counts towards the tag count. So we have about 800 tags that are base to Argos. So with the template, to be able to create things on the fly, to have all the little niceties that we have in there, those take up tags. So we've got about 800 in the base system. So where we're really starting out with customers is a 4,000-point tag license, runtime license from InduSoft. That gives you about 3,000 tags, 3,000 parameters you're pulling out of machinery to work with. That's a pretty good start to a system. And when we're talking about large power monitoring, though, the one we recently sold, we did a 16,000-point tag license, because in this system they had 61 power meters that they wanted to bring in. So with that, you're starting to talk 61 times 30 tags on each one, maybe 40 tags on each one, and then they added in machine monitoring, gen sets, switch gear. So that one we're kind of topping out at 16,000 tags with it. Theoretically, it should work with any limit like InduSoft would, but some of this is going to be, as you know, you need to have the right PC, the right amount of RAM, the right amount of memory, and those type of things. And then most of our systems now are talking to a SQL Express version of SQL.
So this will work fine with a full version of
license.
Yeah, this will work fine with a full version of SQL or any other database for that matter.
It would, yes.
Yep. Okay, great. While your contact information is up, what what type of, I'm going to ask kind of a twofold question here. What type of customer does this target, either from an industry standpoint or the type of user? Is this an integrator? Is this an end user? Who, what industries and what type of customer does this target?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we create. So we're an InduSoft rep, right? So we're out helping our distributors and our integrators sell InduSoft licenses. What we've created Argos as an attempt to do is jumpstart these projects. We're looking for integrators and our distributors to work with us and go to end customers, food and bev, really the 75,000 square foot and below probably plants and factories. So the Fortune 500 guys and 50, they're going to have their own deals, right? They're going to create their own stuff from scratch. But the smaller guys that really want to see, this is what I'm going to get, this is how it's going to work, and then we work with our InduSoft integrators, our machine builders, our distributors for the install of this. The Argos is just one step. One of the big things we're finding is if you're looking at my screen, that network looks great, right? But even that is difficult in most facilities these days. The IP schema is not right. They don't even know what's in that MicroLogix or how to get it out. And that's where the real rubber meets the road, so to speak. The Argos gives them a very simple way to do it, but they still have to have the data. So the plants, the factories, we're going to have a version probably beginning of next year that's really focused towards water, wastewater. So pump panels, tank sites, some of those type of things where it's remote assets similar to a plant. But what we're looking for is small, medium-sized factories and plants, and then to partner with integrators and InduSoft distributors across the country to help get SCADA in the user's hands.
Yeah, it's a great tool. I love the concept. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, so what I'm going to do is I am going to take back presentation status from you. Before I do, let me point out again, here's Matthew's contact information. Go to controlboss.com, shoot him an email if you're interested in more information or purchasing this system. I'm going to go back and let's see if I can do this
and one thing to mention, Scott, is if you go to controlboss.com, you can actually download the Argos template and run it on your InduSoft system. It's built on V8.0. We're testing it now on V8.1, but you can download it. It'll let you run it. It'll let you add 2 assets. You need to license it, so send us an email. We'll license it for 2 assets, and you can add 2 assets and communicate to them all day long and run tests before even purchasing anything.
I think that's kind of neat idea. Good. I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot about that. I was going to ping you on that earlier, and I forgot about that. So, again, I don't see any questions coming in, but just a quick slide on how to contact InduSoft. And, again, we're recording this. This will be up on the website in just a couple of days. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good attendance today. And let us know on the survey how we did. If you'd like to see any topics covered in the future, send us your shirt size, get a free T-shirt, and let us know if you're interested in co-hosting a webinar with us, as our good friend here, Matthew, did. Matthew, thank you again. I know you've had a busy day, and thanks for being able to do this on such short notice. We appreciate it.
Oh, it's fantastic. Thank you all. Thank you, Scott.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. And, I just got a quick note, Matthew, that they don't have a question, but they're going to be contacting you.
Send it on. Let's go. We're ready to work.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Scott. Have a great day.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.